Hey y'all, Rest here. And so today I'm joined by Emmanuel Padilla to go over the deck list that he brought to Winter Cup. Emmanuel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. I'm Emmanuel Padilla, and I'm a former good player trying to get back into the game. Uh, couldn't compete last year due to personal issues, but I'm trying to get back into it now that they announced some incredible organized play events. And I decided to, go all in, go to this Winter Cup, and it was great. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and so I know that you placed second in Swiss out of uh, everyone. You got 5-1 in Swiss. First of all, congrats for the day two placement. Um, yeah, how do you feel about your singles placement and then as well as your team event?
Very good. More than um, performed better than I could have hoped, based on how long I've been out of the game and the amount of practice that I've had with this particular deck. While we didn't place top in the uh, team event, personally, I went 4-1. So only dropped one game to, I think it was like 13, got rushed down and killed
Mhm.
on turn two or three. I don't remember.
As
Um,
13 does.
Yeah, I couldn't it literally could not do anything about it. And then went 5-1 on day 2, losing only to Chaos Arc, which is, already an unfavorable matchup, and I drew into 0 backups on my mulligans. That was rough.
Mhm.
Uh, but based on how the meta is shaped, uh, I just took this as because I enjoy this deck, and this was a less serious event. And it performed very well, very very well. More people than I thought brought meta decks, which we'll discuss later. And I fully expected to underperform, but I'm very happy with the results.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you did super well. So tell me a bit about like going into the tournament because this is your first major tournament in a while, right? Um,
Yes,
uh,
I think since re-race in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, that was over a year ago, year and a half ago, I think.
yeah.
That was the last time I played in anything official. Everything else has been, once in a while in Octagon, once in a while going to locals, but anything major last year, I missed absolutely all of it due to personal things.
Hmm. Yeah, so tell me a little bit about like uh why you picked the four color because I know I I've been playing this deck a lot, but I know that you have been playing a lot of different decks this set.
Yeah, so I wasn't a huge fan of Four Color Wall when it was like the deck to beat. I thought it had way too many tools available that other decks couldn't catch up uh, consistently. When the
Hmm.
meta was basically like wall full, like Four Color Wall and then Chaos Arc to counter it.
Hmm.
Um, while the meta itself was very varied, I thought that wall was a little stronger than the field. Um, and now that it's been like toned down a little bit, but it gained a lot of consistency in the backups. We had incredible backup, uh, uh, incredible backup chain this
Hmm.
set. I thought I'd revisit it and build it in a way that I enjoyed playing
Hmm.
it. Uh, and I found myself, liking what I saw and decided to practice it just because it's a deck with a lot of options. I don't like streamlined approaches to playing. While I'm not like a super control player, I'm more of a mid-range guy.
Hmm.
Uh, Wall is like the deck that presents like, in my opinion, the most options without being a control deck. I enjoy playing it, and I think it has answers to everything. The problem being
Yeah.
that it's not necessarily as consistent as a lot of the decks that we have in this format, especially some of the aggressive decks, which
Yeah.
can just get ahead of you very quickly. But I will say that it is, in my opinion, the top, or if not the top, one of the highest, what we call like tier 2 decks.
Mhm.
The name is called tier 2 wall. Uh, this is in we were talking about it. This is in reference to Ghoul's video, which is
Mhm.
fantastic about the state of the
Yeah,
meta and stuff.
absolutely amazing video. I mean, Ghoul always puts out great videos. His tier lists are always some of my favorite videos that he puts out every set. So I'll definitely throw a link to that in the description. Go check it out. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and he has the results to back it up. I mean, he got first place in the three-person.
Exactly.
So the man has the experience to back it up, and I agree with, I think, like 80% of his tier list.
Hmm.
Especially as it relates to tier 1 and tier 2. That's why I, unironically call the deck tier 2 wall, because I do agree. I think it is like the top of the tier 2, but not quite as strong as the first two decks.
Oh yeah,
Um,
for
yeah,
sure.
so that's why I picked it. I just enjoyed playing it and built it in a way. I guess the deck can be built so many ways that it allowed me to build it in a way that I like, and it's not necessarily the
Yes.
strongest version of the deck, but it's the version that I'm comfortable with, and therefore I can perform better.
Yeah, because I know the two of us kind of took four color in two different directions this set, right? Like I focused really heavily on like, the Princess Goblin backup, but you saw this Lena backup and you were like, I have to play
Yes,
this.
yes, of course. And I mean, I was redeemed because if you see,
Hmm.
I think the very first place list has the same like Lena into Y'shtola idea
Yep.
into the deck. That
Yeah.
was like one of the first things that made me want to play this, and I'm glad to see that someone else thought of it and took it to winners.
Yeah. This is like my favorite interaction that I saw when you put this Opus 5 Y'shtola into the deck. I was like, oh, wait a second.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for toolboxy recursion,
Mhm.
and I think Lena just screams, put some one-off tough guys that you'll discard for CP early on, and then bring them back in a pinch.
Yep.
While at the same time being a searchable EX backup that draws you a billion cards, it's just too good. I
Yeah.
think people are still like kind of underrating this card.
Mhm.
I still think it's like people have not seen the potential. There's a lot of stuff that happened over the weekend that definitely showed how strong and this card is in getting you ahead and playing mind games with what the opponent is doing.
Yeah. And so just to clarify for people who don't know how Lena works, so Lena's special is a water S and a tap, and you can play forward across 3 less Dole onto the field, and you can do that instant speed from your break zone. So turning Y'shtola into instant speed interaction is like pretty bonkers.
Mhm. We
um,
have two ways to instant speed cast Yashola in this deck. One being Cecil, the other being Lana. So
yep.
uh,
Yeah. So
you
I
see
guess
one here, but my opponent saw it 2 3 times in one game.
oh my lord, yeah. I guess yeah, so that brings us to let's talk about like the core game plan of this deck. So uh the most important cards I feel like are the six Cecils that you have, right? Um yeah, I guess just tell me about the core game plan.
So I think I'll start by clarifying that, like I said before, there's a billion ways to build this deck, right? You can go a little more control-y with extra Shintotos. I've
Mhm.
seen a lot of Japanese players going to the more heavy Warrior of Light focus, with Ferris, with Refia, and some of the backups, etc. I went with a little bit more of the classic six Cecils,
Mhm.
Zidane, because I still think that if in matches where your opponent is letting you do what you want to do, so like two mid-range decks against each other, I still think there's nothing stronger than going, off of four backups, going Warrior of Light on tap draw, then go Cecil for alternate cost into Zidane. I think
Mhm.
that's easily the strongest play in the game.
Yeah.
Uh, it's insane. Now, the problem being, a lot of decks won't let you do that, right? So in a meta where we can do this, I think that we always play those cards. So the rest of the deck is built around how can I alter my game plan to face slower starts where I don't see all my backup chains, or when my opponent is being especially aggressive. And in those cases, Cecil is still the best card. So it all hinges on 5 CP Cecil. I have seen a couple of lists where they don't run Cecil, and I genuinely don't understand how people are leaving home without this card if you're playing a more mid range deck that can afford it,
Mhm.
because it just stops a lot of the things that your opponent is doing, especially when they're playing ice or certain control decks. Having them pay 2 additional CP for everything that they do just adds up very quickly.
Yeah.
And the math gets messed up so much that I had extremely good players uh, face me that, and they would take a minute in their turn because they just could not do the Cecil math
Mhm.
quickly enough, because they're okay. I just don't have the resources to do all that I want to do because this Cecil is here.
Yeah.
Um, so definitely super overperformed this weekend.
Um, yeah, and especially, I mean, we'll talk a little bit later about your matchups that you played, but did you face much ice or?
I faced one mono ice in the 3v3 event.
Mhm.
Um, he had a little bit of a slower start. It started with Lufanian, so I was like terrified. But there
Mhm.
was like one turn where he gave me a little bit of breathing room. I think he drew kind of dead.
Yeah.
Um, and that just let me. I think I slammed like something like Tesla or something like that. And just like, all right, I'm just gonna blank everything, and you can't do anything. And
Cecil
with
into Porum, you said?
yeah,
Or yeah.
Tesla Porm, um, and just like stonewalled until I got my stuff right.
Mhm.
Eventually, I think I managed to get a wall down. He kept it like tapped forever, and I think the winning play was something like don't recall exactly, but I know it involved Rosa for sure. It was like, all right, I'm just gonna get Rosa and get wall untapped, and then right. So
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
very 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 good, very solid place.
Mhm. How do you feel about Zidane in this list? Because I know, some people are like 3 Zidane for sure. Like, I want to play this in every deck. Other people are like, I'm not sure about it. How do you feel about this card?
I mean, I'd play 5 if I could. I think most, and this is true. I cast wall for value maybe 2 3 times.
Of the
Most of
whole
my
weekend.
that whole weekend, most of my games were one off of Cecil and Zidane.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. People will go over the top to get rid of Zidane.
Hmm.
Uh, in particular, I've told you about this, but I had an opponent who was on twins.
Oh,
Uh,
yep.
yeah, he saw that I was playing wall. I was like setting up my backups, and he's like, I think he thought, correctly. He thought, oh, he's just gonna take his time setting up backup. So he went. I think he went backup turn 1, and I went backup, and he goes, okay, I'm gonna Edgar into a backup.
Yep.
And on my turn, I just placed it in. Both twins were on the hand, so I just took them both.
Ooh.
Right, and it's like, all right, so had those been slammed down turn 1, I would have lost. But since he saw that it was slow, and Zidane just went, all right, you don't have your twins anymore. They're mine. Right.
Oof. That's brutal.
It is, and I don't see how people are not playing 2 3 copies of Zidane. I could forgive 2 maybe,
Mhm.
but not playing Zidane in a deck that can is just not the way to go. This card is great, and it's not just the give me your hand. Very few things can block it. Very
Yep.
very few things. So he will go in for 1 damage every turn.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess so. The last question I have about your deck choice is, I know that this was definitely not what I thought you were bringing to the event, and I don't think this is what you brought to the locals that was happening on day one, right?
Uh,
Um,
yeah.
so I guess what did you bring to locals, and then what made you switch back to wall for day two?
One of my teammates was a little undecided on which deck they wanted to play. I always knew that if I could play this deck day one, I would, but
Mhm.
he was also considering Soiree, which has a lot of these cards on it,
Yep.
and I'd rather give the Soiree to him
Yeah.
and play something else myself. So I was playing 7 cost wall mono water.
Hmm.
I played the locals event after day one after with it and went 4-1. I lost in the finals due to a horrible misplay on my part, like extremely bad and embarrassing. But overall, it performed. That was a surprise. I was very surprised that that one did as well as it
Hmm.
did. I expected it to be more of a haha look at meme, but no, like wall ramping backups was pretty good. I
Yeah.
was very surprised.
Having played against that deck, it is a bit of a nightmare. The
Mm,
especially you're playing like Sahagin Chief and stuff, and
yep.
um, yeah. But what made you decide to bring this day two?
I wanted 3 Amaterasu on my decks.
Yep.
Um, it's if you're when you're behind, Amaterasu is so good at getting you back in the game, and especially if your opponent is high rolling,
Hmm.
getting like key Amaterasu. I think day two, most of my games were one off of key Amaterasus. As much as I say, I played Zidane, I played Cecil. No, it was just canceling one thing that got me ahead,
Hmm.
so far ahead of my opponent. Versus a wall 7, it was like I think it was their second wall. I canceled it. Um, versus uh, a wind earth opponent, it was like a Noctis search, right? So I just stopped so many things with it that just won me the game on the spot, right?
Hmm.
Uh, I kind of felt looking at the room and looking at what people were playing that I want the safety of Amaterasu in
Hmm.
my 50 cards.
Yeah, I mean, this card answers so much, right? Like,
Yep.
like you were just saying, wall seven. I mean, it can kill a Rufus, right? Kills chaos in that matchup, right? Like it answers so much.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I guess just going through a couple of the uh, tech cards before we move on. How did you feel about Darkness Manifest in here?
Surprisingly well, actually. I joke that that card hears me talk about it every time because every time I consider taking him out, he wins me a game. And it happened. It happened during a match where, actually, I think 2 matches that I played were like immediately won by Darkness Manifest. One of them was my opponent, I think, did not read him well and bounced him to my.
Mm.
He was playing a,
Ooh.
a version of Tori Kelly's monster deck,
Yep.
and he just bounced it with something, and I just killed his Atomos. Like, yeah, it's when he leaves the field, unfortunately. Um,
Ouch.
yeah, so that was a misplay, but like in other cases, he was just a very strong 9K for 2 that I would play alongside something else, right? So I would go like Zidane into Darkness Manifest or something like that. And he put so much pressure on opponents. The only reason I'm playing him is if you look at your bottom left where the color pie is, you see how balanced those colors are.
Hmm.
So he is very easy to cast in this deck because I have a higher than normal fire wind count
Hmm.
uh, due to stuff like Bosch and Zidane being dual colors, Wall himself, Une, and all the backups are like single colors. So he's actually very, very easy to cast in this deck for 2. Sometimes he can get a little clunky. I will say some of my awkward mulligans was because I saw him on my first hand.
Yep.
Uh, but I think he makes up for it. He's a very strong presence
Yeah.
field.
I mean, you pay two for him, and he's insane. Right.
Yep.
Um,
You sit back. Your opponent has to like you. You become the person asking the question. right? You
Yeah.
become the person saying, "All right, you have to answer this because I'm
And
just gonna win by standing here."
especially like you have a Darkness Manifest on field and a Zidane,
Yep,
like
that's exactly how it happened.
yep, that like your opponent has to answer two things now, and they're both two CP, and they're both like doing a point of damage every turn each.
Yep, and I don't have to do anything else or play anything else. I'm
Yep.
literally just sitting back, drawing cards, drawing Mist Dragons and Amaterasus and stuff, and just letting these two things attack and passing and passing and passing, and that's it.
Hmm. What about Une? How'd this card feel?
It felt good. It's one of those that I wish this was like a 60 card format because I want more.
Yep.
But there are other cards that I would consider more than it, and it's searchable, right? You see, I have
Yep.
3 Bosch, so Bosch can get it to get me Yune when I need it.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm okay with it being at 1. I would not cut down, like, for example, Porum, right? That's another I'm like, I kinda want 3 of this. Uh,
This
I
this
want 3
card
of a lot
is
of these, yeah.
yeah. This card is like you were talking about Amaterasu and Mist Dragon. One of my favorite pieces of interaction in this deck is this Porum right here.
Yeah, Porum's insane. Both of my decks had it, right? So,
Yeah.
if you don't have, like, the Amaterasus, you have access to Porum, I think you should be playing it.
Hmm.
Ways, I don't know why people uh, like, stop playing that card in certain decks. It
Hmm.
just does so much. Even if you have a slow start, and this happened where I literally had no backups, I just put a Porum on the field, and only that thing makes my opponent think, "Ah, dang it, what do I do?"
Yeah, like I'm setting up backups, but like I gotta answer this before it gets to 3 turns, you know?
Yep, yep. Because then, if I go Cecil Wall, I'm just gonna snipe all your forwards, right?
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, Forum is one that I consider a 3. I've always said I might cut down like 1 Rosa. She did put in work, but I think my deck is not as consistently doing Warrior of Light, and we've discussed this.
Yeah,
Um, my deck doesn't rely as much on Warrior of Light, so I feel that Rosa could be a one of. My only concern is she's not searchable, other than
yeah,
Pyro, obviously. But I just think Porum Y'shtola put so much work that
yeah.
I kinda wanna see them a little more often.
Like I think pretty much immediately after this weekend, and we had our discussion, I cut this Rosa to 1 and then bumped Ishtola to 2, and I was like, just give me these these interaction pieces. Um, uh, yeah, 3 Bosch as well. I remember when this third Bosch was a Ferris, and I'm
Yep.
very glad that you changed this to a third Bosch.
Yeah, so I'm a little greedy on my back you can see I'm a little greedy on my backups. I
Yeah,
only
only
have
15.
15 backups. I do have a search chain, right? If I start with Clara's, I get to 3.
Hmm.
But even that is a little greedy. And for the longest time, I had 2 Bosch, and I tried everything in that 3rd slot. Arc, Ferris to search off of King Tycoon. And then I just said, I'm just gonna play 3 Bosch, because if I don't draw my stuff, at least I can play this guy and then draw my stuff.
Yeah.
And I would not go down. This card is so good, and in a deck with 20 EXs,
Oh my god, yeah.
hitting a search backup or something and searching something with Bosch is just too much. It's a free card
Hmm.
that like jump starts your backups. Actually, my very first game of the day was versus a good friend, and he was on Mono Lightning,
Hmm.
and my mulligan was I think I mulligan into 1 selfie. That was my only backup. And I said, "Oh, that's unfortunate." And I happened to draw Bosch, right? So I
Yep.
go, "Okay, I'll pitch Bosch and something else for selfie, get Bosch back." And then next turn, Mono Lightning takes its time building its backup. So I just go, "Okay, Bosch, play Bosch, get Clara's, Kin Tycoon, get Tycoon, get Lena." Now I have all my 4 backups because I drew this Bosch, and the Bosch is like threatening damage every turn. He killed it like immediately,
Yeah.
but off of I think it was like a 7 CP Odin burst. I was like, "Oh, that's awesome, dude! I love this. Love that for you." But the deck got out of hand, and in this case, Lena was the card that got out of hand because
Hmm.
he hit like a Pit of Plangoli backup, the one that gets back. a lightning card from your break zone, and he decided not to use it because he didn't want to give me a card. And then he hit another Odin into EX or an Idea into EX, and he's like, "I have to kill your thing." And I'm like, "Okay, cool, I'll draw a card." Um, I think Lena drew me like 7, 8 cards this week.
Oh my lord!
Yeah,
Over the whole weekend.
yeah. But it's come on, it's like a card or two per game on a 2
Yeah.
CP backup, and it denied more than once. He opted not to use any X, and my wind Earth opponent hit a Star Sybil into damage, and he chose not to use it, not to give
Oh
me.
my god.
And, okay, I'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I'm playing against Lena, I'm just always of the opinion like I'm gonna take my searches.
Yeah. Most of the time, I think that's the correct choice, unless I'm like
But
ridiculously far ahead or something.
yeah, like definitely, I mean, there are definitely cases where I might like in the rare case I might not take a Tyro for because like I know what's in their hand from Zidane, for example, or something like that. But yeah,
Right.
in general, I'm usually just letting my opponent take the card draw, kill something or draw something.
Yeah. It also makes I mean Lena does so much because a lot of the time they would see like an untapped Lena and an untapped like Tyro or Moogle,
Mm-hmm.
and they would like want to do a search, but then they would look at my breaks and they would see Zidane and like, is this guy gonna Lena? And I'm like, maybe, I don't know. Am I? Right? Uh yeah, it's like I said, the deck has the flexibility to do amazing plays. Um off of the versatility. It sacrifices the consistency that some other 4-color wall decks have.
Mm-hmm.
Like especially like the Shintoto versions, I call them, that have like 2, 3 Shintoto to like do their backup thing and then wipe your board and then do their wall thing. Those decks like always get wall down.
Mm-hmm.
This one doesn't. But it's an option alongside other strong cards like Cecil Zidane and Porum, etc. So
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about your weekend then. So first you had the team event. Um, how did your matches as a whole go? Walk me through your weekend.
yeah, so first round went versus some very good friends. It was Matthew Rice's team. 3 very good friends. I faced Mono Lightning in that matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I got it, but my teammates unfortunately did not. That was a very very fun match because I remember playing. I was playing around Shinryu. This is the interesting thing. The interesting thing about 3 versus 3. I was
Mm-hmm.
playing around Shinryu the entire time, so I only had like a wall and something else. And then I see that his teammate cast a Shinryu, and I was like, "It's time." I just played 2 more things. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and So I got that one. My teammates did not. After that, I went to versus 13. I don't remember what my teammates were against. I lost that one,
Mm-hmm.
and my one of my other teammates lost it again. So we were 0-2. So I'm like, all right, we're out of this, but let's keep playing. Let's keep practicing.
Mm-hmm.
Round 3 was that was a twins matchup.
Yep.
I got that one, and we I think all 3 of us won, or 2 of us. No, 2 of us won. After that, it was Mono Ice. 2 of us won again. That one was a little tough, but manageable. And the last one was versus Wind Water, very similar to Tori's winning list on day 2.
Mm-hmm.
That one, all 3 of us won in that one.
Nice.
None of that felt particularly difficult. I didn't feel like I think the Twins matchup, it was rough
Mm-hmm.
because I had to play around so many things, but Cecil screwed up the math of a lot of their
Yep.
spot removal. So Cecil combined with I think like Porum was kind of like what held it together for a while until I could stabilize enough to go for game.
Yeah, those two are definitely an MVP in that matchup. Preventing Porm can blank counters. It can prevent Furion draws. It prevents a lot of stuff. It can force the Mog to break things like that, right?
Yeah, I had to blank a Yuski with Porum and with Kuchulain multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
So I could do things and you say, okay, we'll kill the Yuski, but I had to kill something else always.
Yeah.
I, I want to kill you. I'll kill you next turn. Let me
Mhm.
get, and then he would play another thing. I'm like, dang it! All right. So it was super interesting.
Mhm.
Um, highlight on that day, not that much to be honest. The deck performed like very straightforward. It wasn't anything too um exciting to talk about. To be fair, we were in the lower tables because we went 0 and 2.
Yeah.
So a lot of the decks were, a little bit more experimental. The people might be a little newer, so there wasn't too much to talk about. But I performed, 4 and 1, pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. Um, yeah, and then walk me through the singles event, day two.
Day two was a lot tougher. I thought people would, because it was a more casual environment, right? I'm like, okay, I think people will be here memeing and stuff. No, there were like a bunch of wall sevens in the room. Round one. Trying to remember what my round that one opponent was. I can't recall, unfortunately. Round two was versus Wall Seven. This was another fellow Puerto Rican, actually. He was on Wall Seven. I'm like, I don't think I have enough practice to do well. But his first Wall Seven wasn't particularly exciting. It only hit like two backups, fortunately.
Mhm.
But he got two backups, two draws, two crystals out. So I'm like, all right, Cyan is live. But since I saw that, I just held on Amaterasu for his first Gilga. Um, played Ishtola to scare him off doing things while I built up, right? And eventually just went for poking. I hit a Cyan into damage. Then I
Mhm.
kept like doing things and then hit a second Cyan to damage. I'm like,
Ooh.
it's over. Even he said it. He was like, that was me out. So yeah, he got. It was very unfortunate for him to have hit that
Yeah.
to damage. So I got that. Round three was versus Sergio on his Chaos Arc, and Sergio we all know is a fantastic player.
Mhm.
And I saw my first hand. I had I think one or two backups. I think one backup, but I also had a Darkness Manifest. I'm like, all right, I'll mulligan this. Zero backups, no Bosch. Draw two cards because he goes first. No backups, no Bosch. And I literally just played a Porum and passed. Um, surprisingly, I went very aggressive. So I went like it was like Porum, Rosa, and then Cecil Ishtola.
Oh wow.
And
Yeah.
surprisingly, he was like, I don't know how to deal with this. So
Really?
he needed to Toto, but Ishtola was there, right?
Oh.
So he's like, this Cecil is making things very difficult, right? Because and I'm on only two callers, so Chaos Arc is very expensive.
Yep.
Um, so he's like, dang man, this is tough. But and here's where I say to people, practice is more than just knowing how your deck works, is how to mentally handle these situations. Um, I was a little bit tilted, even though I was in a favorable position. Seeing that your opponent gets to do all these fun things and you're just like swing past. Um, I was a little bit tilted, and I did a horrible misplay where had I seen the play, I might have won. The play was I had four cards in hand. One was Amaterasu, one was Mist Dragon, Bosch, and something else, or Warrior of Light and something else, right?
Mhm.
So he has an Uni on the field, and he goes to get a Kuchulain. Now,
Mhm.
if I wasn't tilted, I would have realized, okay, he's trying to Kuchulain to blank my Stola so he can Toto this turn. So my
Mhm.
reaction was, "I'm gonna Mist Dragon your break zone," right? And
Mm.
he then blank my Stola with a Kuchulain and with another Kuchulain, and then no, I'm lying. He broke an Echo to get the Kuchulain and still do it, right?
Yep.
Had I held the Amaterasu, just let him blank the Stola, Toto, and then I cancel that. I think I won on the spot. So
Yeah.
so
Just one of those cases where like Amaterasu, you know,
yeah.
I mean, they have to have the Mist Dragon for it, basically, or whereas the Stola they have like multiple answers for, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think he had the CP for it, right? Because he had to like
Oh,
Kuchel discarding a card because I had Cecil
oh, then yeah,
and then Toto. But that just like put him so far ahead, right? Because I'm one card in hand, no
yep,
backups, no
yeah,
full.
no, that's
He had
yeah,
4 backups or 3 backups and, like, a card in hand. I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, it's over."
Mhm. Yeah.
And then I started, like, drawing all my backups, and I'm like, "Look at me, I'm playing the
Yeah.
game." I was just joking. So I obviously lost that game.
Yeah.
And then game
Um,
4 was another Chaos Arch, Water Earth. This one, uh, who was I playing? I think it was Sydney. And
there's
he
another Water Earth one, right?
another Water Earth one, yeah. And, I was like, "Oh, that's awesome, I just came from this matchup." Now I will
Now you're prepared.
I'm prepared, yeah, but and I will say, I think, and this might be, a take that people don't, um, agree with, I don't think the matchup is as unfavorable as, people make it seem.
Yeah,
It
I
is
agree.
it is favored towards Chaos Arc, don't get me wrong, that the deck is favored, but I
Mhm.
don't think it's like the 90-10, 95-5 that people make it out to be. I think
Oh,
it's
yeah,
closer like
absolutely not.
50, 65-35.
Yeah.
You and I practiced that matchup, and I think I won both times. And then here, I played the deck twice, and I won one. Granted, I had to pull it out of the abyss, but I had to, like Ishtola does so much versus
Oh
that
my
deck.
god, yeah.
Cecil, right? Like I had a play where he bounced. What was it? He bounced my Ishtola with Une. Then he went for what was it? He went to get an arc from Break Zone. So I missed dragon his break zone. He missed dragon my missed dragon. So I broke my Earth Cecil to get a Wind Cecil to get the Ishtola to cancel it. And then I'm like, oh thank God, I'm playing a good game of Final Fantasy.
Yeah, that is like one of my favorite like moments is having those like back and forth moments on the stack. I
And
love Cecil so much, dude.
yeah, no, you could tell like we were both having a great time.
Yeah.
Like even he was like, oh dang, that was so cool, right? And I'm like, yeah, yeah. And then he did some things that I was like, dang it, like he kept like unaing me, right? And then I
Yeah.
uned back. It was we just kept going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until I like I had a board state that was like Cecil Bosch, and he's like, what was it? No, I searched like as a Dane with Bosch, but I
Mhm.
needed the fire CP. I'm like, dang it, I don't have the fire CP. If I draw the fire CP, I win. So he bounces with Une, my last backup, and I think my Cecil or something. And I'm like, well, you just gave me a way to play this. And I just played Cecil Cecil and won. Had he bounced Bosch, it would be the same thing. He would have given me the fire CP I needed.
Mhm.
So, uh, amazing game. I had so much fun with that one.
Yeah. I double checked. Your first game I think was versus Water Lightning Scions.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was keeping you guys updated. That was too close. Way too close for comfort. He got me to 6 damage, and I had no, I'm lying. He got me to 5. I put myself to 6 to Bosch for Zidane and win the game. And I said, if you have EX, because I had a wall that was always going to hit, right? He was like, no cards in hand, tapped out. And I'm like, if you EX, you win. And he had
Mhm.
like all this stuff, and I hit Warrior Light, I hit something, I'm like, "Alright, I win." But it was way too close for comfort. I have no idea why that matchup was so rough.
I always like have I always struggle with that matchup too. I don't even think it's that bad for this deck, but
Yeah, they just do like so many things over and over
mhm.
that you're like, why are they hitting me for 2 every turn? I don't understand what's going on. So yeah, that was my first matchup. Thank you.
Yeah.
Then after that, it was water, earth. What came after that? I don't even remember.
I'm double checking. For one. Um, I don't know. All you said is the last match was won by two Amas. Does that ring a
Oh,
bell?
yeah, that was the Noctis. The
Earthwind.
Earthwind, retainers.
Yeah.
Very, very good deck. It's like a wall, the wind wall that protects your big guys with
Oh.
like Noctis. Yeah, because you can do like he showed me later, but you can do a chain that's like if you Tilica, you can like knock this into Prompto. If you have a Tomos, you untap 2, you play Gladiolos, you fight, then it's like insanity. Like Like, and he had like Griever in that deck. I'm like, oh my god. Um,
What?
I
Wait,
mean,
wait,
the
wait.
deck,
Is this Earthwind?
it's Earthwind. Yeah, it's Earthwind with like a splash of ice. He
Oh my
literally only
lord.
like Griever. It was spooky. That was a very scary deck. I only won because I went hyper aggressive with Cecil Zidane to get stuff out of his hand,
Mhm.
and I drew two. Like, I felt kind of bad, and I told him like, generally drew like I drew an Amaterasu when he drew the Noctis. Next turn he played the 5 color wall. I drew Alexander, killed it, and then I drew an Amaterasu. So when he did another thing, I also canceled that.
Oh my
So
god.
man, like I genuinely feel like I should not have won this game.
I mean, hey, your deck has an insane level of top decks, so I
Yeah, just
didn't feel too bad. I never feel bad.
just draw better.
Yeah, just I mean, you're going greedy on your backups for a reason, right? So,
That's true. That's fair, actually. A very fair way to look at that.
mhm.
And yeah,
um,
that was
yeah,
my day.
yeah. So, I mean, overall, how'd you feel about like the event, like just as a whole?
It was great. Very well run. Very smooth. There was like no hiccups. I think they had to repair once, and it was like round 2, round 3, or something of the first day.
Mhm.
Um, Overall, judges were good. The stream looked very good. There were like no interruptions in the flow. We were done pretty early every day. I mean, to the point that we could have locals on the same day we had the 3-man event.
Yeah, when I heard that, I was like, wow, really?
Yeah, it was a perfectly run event,
Um,
in my opinion.
yeah, and how'd you like the team event too?
That was interesting. I think the challenge of building with the constraints of what your teammates are doing kind of
Yeah,
puts you in a position where always someone gets their way, and then 1 or 2 people have to build around it, right?
yeah,
Well,
like,
in my case, I told my teammates, "You guys build whatever you want. I'll build around it." Right?
mhm.
Because I enjoy that challenge. I like I love playing limited.
Yeah,
So, um, to me, like, all right, just give me a narrow card pool. I'll make do.
yeah.
But
I remember because I think three deck format's definitely interesting to watch as a spectator. Unfortunately, I wasn't there, so I had to watch on Twitch. Sad. I wish I
yeah,
was there.
yeah, you guys
Um,
have to travel this year.
I'm trying to travel this year. Um, whenever that event calendar comes out.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's always really cool seeing all of the crazy like deck lists that people bring. Like, I mean, the first place list was like Cat Six and Retainer Storm and
All 7.
oh well, okay, yeah,
All,
fair.
all 7 Return of Storm. Yeah, it was Travis Pfeiffer, Ghoul, and I don't recall who the third person.
hmm
Um,
but yeah, I do think just talking about the deck constraints, I remember Um, I think it was Anthony Apigo who brought Shinryu, Opus 14 Shinryu, and everyone was talking about how like all that's like great tech, right? Like it's interesting. I was running it over other Shinryu, right? And then
I,
the week before, I I asked him about it. He's like, "Yeah, I'm running it because my teammate's running Opus 20 Shinryu."
I mean, to be fair, I watched him play a match
Oh,
where I think that it was versus Wall 7, and he played that. I'm like, ha ha ha!
yep,
That's kind of funny.
yeah.
Uh,
It definitely is one of those cases of like, the constraints lead to like interesting solutions, you know?
for sure, but I think the card pool is there to build 3 very strong decks.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely no overlap between Wall 7 and Mono Ice or something like that, so your
hmm
3rd deck can be something a little weaker, but on the, like a Mono Lightning deck with Science or something, and you still get, uh, 3 very solid decks. Well, 2 broken decks and a solid deck, right?
Yeah. Um, yeah. I guess leading into as well, talking about broken decks, how do you feel about the metagame as a whole? Because I know a lot of people have a lot of different thoughts about this set, so I'm curious to hear how you feel, especially after this weekend.
I think the overall feeling, based on conversations that I had, was not a lot of people are enjoying this meta. a lot.
Hmm.
I was joking around that we should have taken it a little more seriously because I don't want people to see these top decks, and be like, "Oh yeah, ice is not a problem. Look," it's like, no, 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 no. We weren't taking it that serious, right?
Hmm.
Had this been a competitive event for like Nats, your top 8 would have been completely different. I would have been playing something different.
Hmm.
Um, I think, I agree with what Ghoul said, where, like, Ice and Wall 7 are, like, a full step and a half above the other decks. Everything in what he considered tier 2 is strong and very fun, but these other decks kinda, like, most of the time do everything better.
Hmm.
So, it creates this, are you playing that deck or are you playing something that beats it? And if you're trying to play anything else, you're like specifically beats it is what I'm saying. Like you're anti-meting it. If not, then you're gonna just lose, right?
Yeah.
You can't bring a mid deck and do well like some people do. You have to consider those decks, and they're just so far above and beyond what we've seen as the top deck in a while. I don't think that I would enjoy a competitive event in this format.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the overall feeling, I think.
Yeah. So kind of looking more forward to Opus 22 onwards.
I am, yeah. Hopefully it brings the power level of like removal and stuff a little bit on par with the aggression.
Yeah, I agree.
Uh, if not, then it might be worth looking at certain cards, and seeing what to do with them.
Hmm.
Just so that we reduce the amount of non-games, right? I think that's what when they ban cards, they're not banning on necessarily like brokenness, except I think Stern Mashery, where like okay, these cards are like just so busted. But stuff like the ice things like Gesper, Thaumaturge, and all that stuff was like, this creates like unfun non games, so like let's just get rid of that.
Hmm.
And we do have some decks, specifically like Ice Water and stuff like that, that yes, if you have the tools to deal with it, if you have bounds in your deck, you're fine. But if you don't, you have non-games versus it.
Hmm.
My friend like Brian Gearty was playing Ice Water, and he had games where he went, Reaver, Neo X, let's go. Okay, I guess I lose, right?
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
um,
Anything else you want to mention?
no, shout out to uh, everybody who played, and the location was fantastic. So
Yeah.
very, very,
Awesome.
very fun event. Looking forward to this year. Looking forward to all the events, seeing everybody, and hopefully winning a trip to Japan. Hope. I don't know if if I'm there yet, but we'll see.
Hey, I think so. You keep mentioning how, oh, you're washed out or whatever. Dude, you're still pretty good. I think you got it in you.
I'm a little washed out still. A little practice there.
Yeah. You gotta come out to locals so we can practice.
I
All right. Well, it was great chatting with you. It's always great to hear your thoughts, and good to go over this list. Yeah, and once more, congrats. I mean, you did pretty well this weekend. So,
thank you. Yeah, it was quite fun, and I hope to keep putting up these results.
yeah. All right. Thank you everyone for watching. Have a good one.
Bye.